In the mid-20th century, Kenya, a jewel of East Africa, found itself under the firm grip of British colonial rule. For decades, the indigenous people, particularly the Kikuyu, faced increasing land alienation and political marginalization. Their ancestral lands were seized, and their voices in governance were systematically silenced, fueling deep-seated resentment. This growing discontent simmered beneath the surface, a silent protest against an oppressive system. The promise of a better life under colonial rule had faded, replaced by hardship and a yearning for self-determination. By the early 1950s, this simmering anger began to coalesce into an organized resistance movement. This was the birth of the Mau Mau Uprising, a desperate struggle for freedom and the return of their stolen heritage. The movement's origins were deeply rooted in the Kikuyu community's cultural and spiritual beliefs. It was a response to decades of economic exploitation and the erosion of their traditional way of life. The British colonial administration, however, viewed these grievances as mere criminal acts, not legitimate political demands. This fundamental misunderstanding would set the stage for a brutal and protracted conflict. The Mau Mau Uprising was not just a fight for land, it was a fight for identity, dignity, and self-rule. It would forever change the course of Kenyan history and leave an indelible mark on the struggle for decolonization. As tensions mounted, the Mau Mau movement began to formalize its structure and recruit members. Central to this process were the oathing ceremonies, powerful rituals designed to bind members to the cause. These oaths instilled loyalty and secrecy, creating a formidable underground network. The British viewed these oaths with alarm, seeing them as barbaric and a direct challenge to their authority. As the movement gained momentum, small guerrilla groups began to form, operating from the dense forests. These fighters, often called forest gangs by the British, launched raids on colonial farms and infrastructure. Their actions, though often brutal, were a desperate attempt to reclaim what they believed was rightfully theirs. A pivotal figure in the uprising was Dedan Kimathi, a charismatic leader who emerged as a symbol of resistance. Kimathi's leadership galvanized the movement, inspiring many to join the fight for independence. His strategic brilliance and unwavering commitment made him a primary target for the British forces. As the violence escalated, the British colonial government declared a state of emergency in October 1952. This declaration granted sweeping powers to the authorities, leading to mass arrests and increased military operations. The conflict transformed into a full-scale war, with both sides employing increasingly brutal tactics. Mau Mau fighters, though often outmatched in weaponry, utilized their knowledge of the terrain for guerrilla warfare. They established hidden camps deep within the Aberdare and Mount Kenya forests, their strongholds. These camps served as training grounds, supply depots, and safe havens for the insurgents. The British, in turn, launched extensive military operations, including aerial bombardments and ground sweeps. They also employed intelligence gathering, using informers and psychological warfare to undermine the movement. The intensity of the fighting reached its peak in the mid-1950s, with heavy casualties on both sides. The British implemented a series of harsh counterinsurgency measures to suppress the uprising. One of the most controversial was the establishment of detention camps, often referred to as rehabilitation camps. Tens of thousands of Kikuyu, suspected of Mau Mau sympathies, were interned in these camps. Conditions in the camps were often brutal, with widespread reports of torture, starvation, and forced labor. These camps became symbols of the extreme measures taken by the colonial power to crush dissent. Another tactic was the villagization program, which forcibly resettled rural populations into controlled villages. This was intended to cut off support for the Mau Mau fighters and monitor the civilian population. While effective in isolating the Mau Mau, it caused immense disruption and suffering for the Kikuyu people. The human cost of the uprising was staggering, with thousands of lives lost on all sides. The British response, though ultimately successful in suppressing the armed rebellion, remains highly controversial. Accusations of human rights abuses and excessive force have cast a long shadow over this period of history. The capture of key Mau Mau leaders, including Dedan Kimathi in 1956, dealt a severe blow to the movement. His subsequent trial and execution further demoralized the remaining fighters. By 1960, the armed resistance had largely been suppressed, bringing an end to the active phase of the uprising. The immediate aftermath saw Kenya grappling with the scars of conflict and the legacy of colonial rule. However, the uprising had irrevocably altered the political landscape, accelerating Kenya's path to independence. The British, facing mounting international pressure and the high cost of the war, began to prepare for decolonization. Kenya finally achieved independence in 1963, a direct consequence of the forces unleashed by the Mau Mau. The legacy of the Mau Mau Uprising remains complex and contested in Kenyan history. For some, the Mau Mau were heroic freedom fighters, sacrificing everything for their nation's liberation. For others, particularly those who suffered at their hands, they were violent terrorists. This duality reflects the brutal realities of colonial conflict and the difficult choices made in the pursuit of freedom. The Mau Mau Uprising stands as a powerful testament to the human spirit's resilience against oppression. It played a crucial role in the broader decolonization movement across Africa, inspiring other nations. Today, understanding the Mau Mau Uprising is essential for comprehending modern Kenya and the legacy of colonialism. It reminds us of the sacrifices made for freedom and the enduring quest for justice and self-determination.